So the talk today, we're talking about Arnold Clark and their approach to using SFIA to support their digital careers. Just a brief introduction to today's speaker. So Davie Gow, been Chief Technology Officer at Arnold Clark since May 2024, with a long career in technology. We're really grateful that Davie's taken some time and effort to not only present this, but to prepare for this talk as well. It's absolutely fantastic to get someone to take the time to do this and share their story. We have asked Davie to be really honest about what he's doing and how it works, so that it's not everything goes absolutely well on any projects like this. And I think that's what people really learn from best, is the experience of going through the process and learning about SFIA, learning about how to land it in your own particular organization. Okay, Davie, can I just check whether you're ready to go? Okay, so do you want to share your slides? I can see that perfectly, Davie. Yeah, that's good. So without further ado, if I hand over to Davie, and let's go.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming along. Peter's done a great job of introducing me, but I just thought I'd give you a tiny bit of background, I suppose. As Peter said, I started as a YTS, which is Youth Training Scheme, which is basically a 16-year-old school leaver, really wet behind the ears, kind of what the UK would call a modern apprentice nowadays. Straight into technology with a company called Microcom, who still exists. And they placed me at Devro, which was a sausage skin manufacturer, which is a global subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson Healthcare. Don't go into the reasons behind that, but essentially surgical sutures. And then from there, I went off and joined Unipart, a car parts company. I had the grand job title of a KISS consultant, which was keeping IT simple. Did that for a few years, and then I went off and freelanced for 20 years. Really enjoyed myself freelancing. Loads of different roles: technical architecture, design, large program implementation, red program recovery, loads of different industry sectors. And then for some reason, I was invited to join the Scottish Government First Minister's Digital Fellowship Programme under the Digital Data and Technology Career Profession. Absolutely fantastic. Enjoyed that. Really good getting to work with the public sector and kind of being able to help set some technology strategy. I then joined Leidos Innovations UK, Chief Architect for Civil, which was public sector, and Deputy UK CTO and Solution Architect Capability Lead for a few years. And then I joined Arnold Clark. I suppose a couple of things down the bottom there, just to put some perspective in. Microcom asked me when I was 19 years old to go and open up their centre, so that's what that kind of press clipping is. I don't think I've changed, still young and handsome. You would never know I'm just the wrong side of 50. And then for some reason, when I was doing the Scottish Government thing, I was asked to go and do a professional photo shoot and videos. I really enjoyed that. Not something as a technologist you ever get to do. So that's there. And then that last kind of page, some of you recognize the color schemes and that on there. That was my first introduction to SFIA back in kind of SFIA 5, 2015. As a freelance contractor, I was desperate to get my CV caught by word searches, agents, whatever. And I came across the British Computer Society and Skills Plus and SFIA. And this was my totally arrogant self-assessment of my skills, putting myself at 6s and 5s and stuff that really I just didn't understand SFIA properly. So that for me that's a quick potted history into me. Quick potted history into Arnold Clark, I suppose, who we are, just to give a sense of scale. Yep, we sell cars. We've got just under 200 sites across the UK and 11,500 employees, 300 within digital. So a fairly large digital department. The company was founded in 1954 by Sir Arnold, 70 years trading. Essentially, we sell nearly or just over 250,000 cars per year. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of the scale. 35 franchises from Alpine to BMW to Corvette to Mercedes to Volvo. We've got our own UK charge network, which is different from every others. We've got our own training subsidiary. We've got smart repairs, body shops, anything at all to do with automotive. We've got it. And if you're in the UK, you'll recognise that yellow sticker off the back of a car. Pretty much, if you're in the west of Scotland, nearly every car's got one on it. And I think just to give you an idea of the digital department itself, our website, arnoldclark.com, 43 million vehicle searches in 2025. Online users shortlisted and saved 3.1 million vehicles in the app and on their favourites online. Customers built 400,000 deals, of which 18% converted to a sale. And basically that's customers interactively adding finance, adding products, chopping and changing deposits. And we've got a rewards app, we've got 400,000 rewards opt-ins. You've probably seen us on Scottish Rugby. We sponsor the Scottish Rugby team. And we had a fantastic victory over the old enemy on Saturday there in the Calcutta Cup. So now I'll go on to the kind of SFIA stuff, now that I've built that background. I suppose for me, one of the key tenets that we've done, and I wanted to kind of show this picture before I go on to anything else, was that what we've tried to do with everything was leverage as much SFIA community content as possible. The challenge I had from the board when I was hired back in May 2024 was that there was no real progression framework for our digital staff. The board kind of felt a wee bit held to ransom now and again because, we sell cars, right? It's really obvious we sell cars. It's obvious to know when a good car salesman changes to a great car salesperson. They go from selling 20 cars a month to 30 cars a month. That's an obvious quantifiable product. But how do you do that in digital? And that was one of the challenges the board faced was, look, Davie, we've got people coming to us saying they've been offered more money, saying that they don't really know what they need to do to progress. And we don't really understand it. We're car salespeople. So help us understand career progression and help us get a structure in place that we don't feel held to ransom. And then when I joined, started talking to all the staff, and the staff had a kind of different feeling. The staff felt undervalued. They kind of felt that to get a promotion, your face had to fit. They don't really know what they had to do. And what we did was we created this kind of progression framework where we had the idea of these skill sets. Now, skill sets are really a collection of SFIA skills, whether that's generic attributes, business skills, or professional skills, and a bunch of attributes towards them. I'll come to attributes in a second. But what we started to do was to try and say, actually, if you want to go from one role, say a software engineer, to a principal engineer, yes, you still need the software engineering skills that are in that skill set, but you also need to have some kind of technical assurance skills. Or if you want to go down a different path and go to lead engineer, you still need those software engineering skills, but actually need engineering manager skills set because you're doing a lot more people management. And this for me, this diagram is one of those really blatant, steal with kind of pride attempts. This is nowhere near as good as the Australian Career Pathfinder tool, which we did reach out in 2024 and say, please, is there an open source version? I think they're on the path to it. I'd love it if they did. But this was us trying to illustrate what does it look like if you have a career progression path. And I suppose that's the key. That was the starting point was, the board understood car salespeople from great, from good to great. They didn't understand IT. They didn't understand digital. They felt it was just IT people doing IT things. And one of the big advantages that SFIA had to me, and I convinced the board, was that because it was globally recognized, we could, once we got all our staff into this proper framework and we had a good understanding of the skills they had and the levels of skills they had, that we would be able to compare to the market, to other organizations what skills, levels, whether that goes to salary bands or job descriptions, but would be able to compare. It wasn't just things created in-house. And really, this is the kind of main goals and objectives that we had for implementing Arnold Clark Digital Careers. And I do talk about Arnold Clark Digital Careers. SFIA is one of the components in the toolbox. I refer to SFIA as kind of my socket set in the toolbox. Each skill is a different shape of socket, and each level might be whether it's a single hex or a double hex. It's just a different way of using things. So as a digital staff member and a professional, I need various tools in my toolbox, and SFIA is that kind of socket set for me. So I wanted to give people this kind of socket set to use and understand as part of Arnold Clark Digital Careers. And we wanted to transform the organisation to skill and competency based, and it was really important to me and the board that we empowered our staff to be able to choose their own career path. What we didn't want to do is to say, well, actually, you have to spend a year as a software engineer before you do a year as something else before you do that. We wanted staff to be empowered to be able to pick their own career path and to look at the development they needed to move between those levels, whether that's via skills or skill sets. And we also kind of took the attitude that, we're a huge retailer. Whether staff come and join us and stay for 2, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, we wanted everyone that joined digital to have a real good experience of Arnold Clark. And, we were really conscious that even ex-employees are still customers and can be advocates and say that the Arnold Clark Digital treated them really well as their employees. So we wanted to kind of make sure that was all through it. We made sure that we had real board engagement, a monthly basis. As part of my monthly board, as my role as CTO, I take up what I'm going to spend each month, what my strategy is, what kind of direction I need. And every month I was taking feedback of what would progress with Arnold Clark Digital Careers, the challenges we faced, and we got the board really involved in helping us give direction and asking questions. I think that was really key for me for successful implementation, was making sure it wasn't just a digital thing, it wasn't just a people team thing, and it wasn't just for employees, it had to be everyone. And that we did have people team involvement, people directors involved. She sits on one of our steering groups, and so does the employee representatives. They sit on the steering groups, and that helps us with the implementation as well. I suppose the next thing really is that for us, it was about retaining our staff, not necessarily about attracting, but retaining staff was the most important, because when we didn't have formal recognition of skills and levels, it was really hard to retain staff when they were getting job offers from somewhere else that looked like the same job title or a better job title, and it had different remuneration package, but we couldn't compare it. So being able to define the skills and levels helps us compare and helps us when somebody does get an offer that we can do something to retain. And the long-term goal is that we'll do regular market assessments to ensure that the salary bands are all aligned to market. I think the key thing was we also wanted to get people to recognise that Arnold Clark Digital was a real kind of forward-thinking digital organisation. We weren't somewhere that you just went to and buy a car. We actually have a huge engineering team. As I say, we've got about 300 people. I've got just under 90 software engineers. All of our software is developed in-house. All of our key line of business, sales, after sales, service applications, they're all in-house. And this was really key to it. Take a wee breath. Hopefully I'm going at a speed you can hear and understand, and I'm clear enough. I'm going to get to the actual implementation side now, rather than the drivers behind what we were trying to achieve. I think some of the real key things for me were we needed somewhere to start, and I've said before, the SFIA community, you know, the SFIA Foundation website, all the job roles that people have uploaded, whether that's DDAT or it's cyber roles or it's English apprenticeship roles, the fact that other people have contributed to the community, and it gives you their view of what skills and levels are available for each role. That was a massive accelerator for us, because what we did was we faced this real challenge where if we told people that a job had these 5 skills at these 5 levels, we faced the challenge that when we rolled that out to our staff in existing roles, that actually some of them might not have the skills that we've said, and some of them might have the skills and more and at higher levels. And that put us in this kind of catch-22 of, we can't really tell somebody that is doing the job they don't have the skills and the experience and the levels to do the job. But we also don't want to put ourselves in a place where people that are doing the job come up and go, well, look, I've got 10 more skills and I'm five levels higher than I need to be. And that would put us in a challenging place as well. So what we did was we took all of the kind of roles and the descriptions and the skills and the levels that the community had created, and we created sample roles or type roles. And what we did was we then asked everybody in the same kind of job, so all our software engineers, we gave them the software engineering type role, and we said, can you give us an honest self-assessment against that type role? And we did that for all the other roles, whether that's cyber engineering, it's SOC engineers, it's service desk analysts, it's product designers, it's product managers. We set up all of these type roles, and that's how we asked people to do an initial kind of self-assessment. That was really important, and SFIA 9 was absolutely critical for that for me. Without SFIA 9 and the breakdown of the business skills, I'm not convinced SFIA would have been a great fit for all of the kind of softer digital roles, you know, those product managers, the designers, the administrative staff. SFIA 9 really, for me, those professional skills really brought that to the table. I'm going to talk about attributes. I might jump back to and from this slide a couple of times, right? I'm going to jump to attributes and what I mean by attributes. For me, a professional skill, when I was talking to my software engineers or I was talking to my infrastructure engineers, I was saying, well, what skills do you have? And the instant answer was usually something like, well, Python, or, you know, .NET or Terraform. And I was like, well, they're not actually skills. And that got a bit kind of confrontational. And what we had to do was kind of then talk about, well, actually, what are they if they're not skills? And we talked about these attributes. So to me, Python was a tool, you know, and that's where, for me, we used this kind of, you know, this terminology, TEDS, technologies, experience, domains, and that aligns to skills. So SFIA gives me skills, but what it doesn't do, and it deliberately doesn't do, and it rightly doesn't do, is tell me that that's in .NET or it's in Terraform or it's in Python or it's in Java. It's a professional skill, software engineering. So we took the concept of attributes and we started applying them to skills. So when somebody says I'm a software engineer and actually I think I've got level 4, then actually we looked at it and we went, well, actually that's level 4 with the attribute for Python. And it was really important that we kind of captured all of the attributes. You know, what experience does somebody have? Is it a large program? Is it a small program? Is it the designer inception phase of a new product, or actually is it a red program and somebody's got the experience of fixing it? And what also was important was that kind of domain knowledge. So did they understand retail sales? Did they understand business sales? Did they understand finance? Did they understand credit card payments and PCI DSS? So that domain knowledge as well. And that's how we've related that to skills. So within Arnold Clark Digital Careers, we ask people to assess their skill, the level, and tell us the attributes from technologies, experience, and domain. And that helped us get a really good idea of what we've got out within the existing teams. And by doing it against type roles, we've made sure that everybody knows there's not a threat to their role if they're under assessing, or they're not instantly looking for promotion and more money if they're all over assessing. The type roles are that kind of template. Now, that wasn't without problems at all. Again, you'll get some automotive stuff in the toolbox. We hit some speed bumps. March 2025, we had all the type roles ready for the whole department. We soft launched it to the whole department, and we asked everybody to do kind of self-assessments, and we supported that with e-learning. So we did some e-learning on what SFIA is. We did some e-learning on the tools we were using for the implementation, and we created some e-learning self-paced training for the generic attributes and business skills, levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we kind of did this real soft launch of, look, we've got Arnold Clark Digital Careers. It involves this tool. It involves SFIA. It involves type roles. It involves this e-learning platform. Can you all please go and do a self-assessment? And you can see from this, we had 300 staff members with a massive uptake of people logging in and actually doing their self-assessment. And then we hit this real speed bump where actually everybody said, well, what's next? Right, we've done a self-assessment against a type role. What does that actually mean? And like, all right. So you need to have a conversation with your staff about setting a real role. Well, what's a real role? You need to have a conversation with your staff if they've over-assessed. Well, how do I do that? Right, now somebody's under-assessed. You need to coach them to be able to bring them up. Right, how do I do that? And what we realised was that whilst we had a really competent technical team, what we didn't have was leaders and managers that were used to having those kind of conversations with their teams around, difficult conversations, somebody's under-assessed or somebody's over-assessed, and they just really didn't have any repeatable patterns around having one-to-ones to be able to set goals and objectives. So we hit this big speed bump in kind of May, June, July, and everybody just kind of sat looking at each other going, what next? We don't know what to do. So from my perspective, we got really lucky in the fact that, and it was luck, I wasn't prepped to do this. One of the subsidiaries that we have is called GTG. It's a training company. They run loads of automotive apprenticeships across the UK. We currently have about 800 apprentices within Arnold Clark every year, and GTG run about 2,500 automotive apprenticeships across the whole of the UK for different companies, and they run training for all sorts of groups and companies. So we had the benefit of having our own training company. So what we did was we reached out to GTG, and we got one of our partners involved as well, and Fantastic Thinking. And what we did was we created our own course on how to manage and lead people. And again, this isn't SFIA. What this is here's all the basic things you need to be able to lead a bunch of people, to do skills assessments with them, to do goals assessment with them, to have genuine conversations with them about their career, and to manage your team. We created leading and managing people. We really good handbook. We did video assessments. We did a full-blown classroom. And actually, this kind of started in July, August last year. We got together. We also had one of our staff, John. John was a principal instructor at Code Clan back in the day. So we had somebody that actually knew how to teach technical subjects. We had the training company. We had Fantastic Thinking. And we sat down and we put a curriculum together, and we ran a beta cohort through 15 different modules over 3 days. Oh, I'm having sweats at the pain of doing all this. And from that, we took feedback from the beta cohort, and and we came up with a 10-module 2-day course. We went to the board. We told the board that we'd had problems, that we just got stuck at the speed bump. The board were really sympathetic. The board approved funding to send every single line manager in digital. So we had 50 plus line managers. The board approved the budget to send all 50 plus of them on 2 days of training out at GTG. They approved the budget to do the full bespoke training course. And we created the kind of rollout plan. And this is, if you like, this is all the high level modules. You get an idea of the things that we felt our line managers just didn't have to be able to run a successful career development program. We're still ongoing now. As I say, kind of July, August, September last year, we run the beta cohort. We got budget approval. We started rolling out in November. And it's just taken time. We cannot do this stuff overnight. So we've now got, as some of our people leaders go on the training and they complete it, they're then picking up the self-assessments with the staff, and they're now equipped to have those conversations around converting a tight role into a real role, setting goals and objectives, and getting people to understand. We've also, because we realised there was this kind of speed bump we had kind of summer last year, we needed a way to keep it real for employees as well. And part of that challenge for me was really like, well, how do we make this not just a career progression framework? How do we make it not just the only thing people do? And that was also a driver from the board. The board were pretty concerned that if we gave staff a career progression framework, they would only do the career progression framework. They wouldn't actually do their job. So we needed a way to make that real and embed it into day-to-day. So what we've got here is just a kind of snapshot of some of the things we did. We got involved with the Scotland Is, which is the trade body, if you like, for Scottish technology companies. And we sponsored one of their Young Software Engineer Awards for ScotSoft 2025 and 2024. We got a table at the event. We've been going along, we're getting involved, getting a brand out there, because obviously recruiting and retaining staff can be really difficult when you're against some big names. So getting that brand name out there, doing that. We did a machine learning event. We contacted one of our technology hyperscale providers that has an automotive kind of virtual racing program. And we did that in after hours and lunchtime. And we just called it the MLNG event. That's obviously a SFIA skill. We paced it at level 3, just to make it kind of easy for people to enter. We had about 40 odd people from across the department who sacrificed their lunch times and after hours and learn a lot about machine learning, machine vision, training models. And that photograph in the middle is the kind of the final day. Luckily, our photography team have blanked out all the pizza and cans of pop and juice that were on the table, so it doesn't look we're all really unhealthy Glaswegians. We are, right? But that's the way that's blanked. And then one of the other things we did was we got involved in Scotland Women in Technology, and there's a lot of the very fantastic digital leadership ladies in the team, and that's Denise presenting the award there for Rising Star that we sponsored. So what we needed to do, as I say, was get that brand out there. It's not just about SFIA. In fact, you'll find a lot of this talk that I've done really is using SFIA as one of the tools in the toolbox, but to successfully implement that career program, we just had to do a lot more. This snapshot, I talked about kind of making it real and kind of the generic skills and business, generic attributes and business skills. We've got ACE Learning. ACE stands for Arnold Clark Employee Learning Platform. It's an online self-paced e-learning platform. We worked closely with our training team again, and we identified a load of self-paced online training that aligned closely to all of the generic attributes and business skills. And what we did was we made them open on our ACE platform for all employees within digital to self-sign up to. And we've done no communication on this whatsoever until the last couple of weeks, where actually what I did was I practiced this slide deck by doing it internally. One, to make sure I wasn't telling everybody out in the world things I hadn't told our staff about, and two, just to make sure I actually could talk it through. Still don't know if I'm doing a good job. I'll get feedback at the end probably. And I found it really interesting. Without any kind of comms at all, staff discovered the online training that was aligned to each of the attributes and business skills. And they started to give themselves goals and objectives, and started to have conversations with the line managers. You know, I need some more communication training, or I need some collaboration training, or actually I want to learn how to influence people as well. And you can see here these numbers. Without any of that kind of comms and the soft launch, we still managed to get people self-assign. You know, granted, we've got 300 odd people in the department, and some of the courses have had no uptake at all. But this is all real soft launch. So for me, the key thing on it was people are screaming out for career development. People are screaming out for structured progression. And even if we're not telling them about it, they're finding it themselves. So we need to get better at it. But I'm taking this as a success, because that's, 55 people signed up for an autonomy course. 23 of them completed it. I would never have known they needed that development. Okay, so to me, that's one critical success. I promise there's not long left. Okay, I wanted to cover, this is kind of the last bit for me, and I've flown through a lot of this, and I've probably missed bits out. The worrying thing is I need to do this exact same talk and missing the same bits out later this evening. So we'll see how that goes. As I said earlier on, the board understood what it took to be a great car salesperson, and they knew what it took to be a good one. What they didn't understand is digital and how we turned that into quantitative. So again, while we were running the beta training course for managing and leading people, every month we were going to the board and saying, does this look good for goals and objectives? Do you understand this? Have we turned this into something quantifiable? And I'll walk through just now just a few slides of what we did. What we found really, really useful was the SFIA levels of responsibility for setting goals and objectives. The key thing for me was that kind of essence of the level. It really helped set fair and appropriate goals and objectives. And I'll give you an example. For example, if we've got an apprentice that works predominantly at that level 1, following instruction and provides routine tasks and objection, there's absolutely no point giving them a goal that is to significantly influence the organization, right? So by saying to people, based on the skills that somebody has and the level they operate, we need their goals and objectives to be aligned to that essence of the level. And again, one, that's really fair for junior staff, because you're not setting goals far too high for them. But two, it lets you set stretch goals, because one of the key things for us was that whilst people could do personal development and we could train them, they couldn't actually get a promotion unless there was a vacancy. But what we could do was set stretch goals and objectives above the level they do work at, so that when they apply for a promotion or apply for another role, they've got the evidence to say they've operated at that higher level, which was the same thing to the board as us saying they've proven they can sell more cars, because we've set them goals and objectives above their own level. So that's kind of how we did stretch goals. And then the third component of it was, one of the things that we've kind of had a bit of a worry about, it was a concern, was that actually just because someone's senior doesn't mean they're high performing. Somebody senior is expected to operate at the highest organizational level, and they have significant organizational influence. But that automatically doesn't make them high performing. What makes them high performing is consistently performing at goals and objectives that are related and at that level. So what we had was a way of fairly leveling people's goals and objectives and making sure people that were senior were set the appropriate level of challenging goals and objectives. People that were junior were set appropriate, and people that wanted stretch roles. So just by using this level of responsibility, this gave us those kind of 3 tools for setting goals and objectives for our staff. I'm really conscious of time, so I've got 2 slides, maybe 3 slides left, so hopefully that's going to be okay. What I wanted to do was kind of give an example of not goals and objectives, but the areas in which we could have goals and objectives. And remember, this is for an organisation that until we started doing this, we never had a consistent formal framework for goals and objectives across all of digital. Other departments did. I mean, even our valeters had goals and objectives around the amount of cars they cleaned per hour and how dirty the cars were. But digital, we'd never had anything formal. So we wanted to kind of say, right, here's the main areas that are important. If you're a people leader, in other words, if you're a principal engineer, so you're a senior technical individual contributor, but you influence people, you don't necessarily line manage them, then actually you have a people leader goal as well as line managers will. And the items below, things like regular one-to-ones, that might be, well, if I operate at level 4 as a line manager, I need to find a kind of level 4 related goal for having one-to-ones. And that might be, and they have to be smart. So that might be successfully complete all 5 of my team members monthly regular one-to-ones and set them all one goal that is relevant at their level. So again, it's setting them and do that kind of by March or April. So make sure you're setting all the goals in a smart way. This kind of board is that crib sheet for having the conversation. Again, really important. Everybody in the department, not just the people leaders, has goals around our culture and our company values, because the only way we turn them from words that are written down on a wall or a poster or a web page are actually to become a value by becoming a repeatable mass habit. So we want people to be able to progress. So we're setting people goals around, well, actually, your goal is to help somebody else progress. It's to do some knowledge transfer. Your goal might be to have recognition, to be able to tell people how good they are, to be able, to give people praise. It might be about community. We might say, actually, you're going to have a goal this year to do X amount of charity fundraising work, because otherwise a community value is just a word on a poster. So to turn it into actions and to turn it into real culture in the organisation, we wanted to set goals and objectives and get people behaving the way we want them to behave. We also have results-based one. And results goals are really your personal development. So every individual will have some results goals. And you can see here, those are based around the SFIA professional skills, generic attributes, and business skills. So those may be skills you want to develop. So we'll set some goals around that development and we'll agree them with the employee. And that could be for your current role or any future role. And it was really key that we had this in here, and it was balanced with the impact goals, which are around your current job. So, are those technical or, business goals you've got? Maybe it's compliance, maybe it's resilience, making sure the systems are highly available. Maybe it's about adding innovation, or maybe it's financial efficiency or commercial efficiency. You've ran some FinOps and you've got your platform running cheaper and better than it could before. And by having the results stuff for individual personal performance embedded in all the other goals and objectives, we counter that board challenge that we had right back at the start, which was, if we implement career progression, how do you make sure it's not the only thing people do? So we do that by balancing the goals and objectives. Really, the last couple of slides, how do we turn that into quantifiable information? Essentially, we created a scoring mechanism because as I say, the board understand 30 cars versus 20 cars versus 10 cars sold. So we needed to turn the goals and objectives and the success and delivery into numbers. So we come up with, you know, a typical kind of procurement scoring evaluation type. We wanted to differentiate from people that were exceptional. We wanted to differentiate the high performing and the ones that are doing their job. They're meeting all the minimum requirements. And we wanted to highlight where there was development opportunity. So what does that look like? Essentially, we created a scoring mechanism that allowed us to have constructive conversations with staff, to give feedback around areas for development, to give praise, and to give an overall score that then allowed us to go to the board. And as I say, we did this in conjunction with the board. September, October, November, December, we ran 2 staff members through pilot kind of goals and objectives on stretch roles, and the board reviewed them every month. And I do mean the main board. We went to the main board every month and we reviewed how we were doing goals and objectives, how the staff were performing. And then I'm happy to say that in December, the board approved the process and granted promotions to the people that went through it. And really, there's still more to go because we're nowhere near finished. That's me. Hopefully that whirlwind has been okay.
Yeah.
No, that's me, Peter. Sorry, I've gone through it too quick. I'm all done.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, Davie. That was really great. I love the way
I've been far too fast, have I?
No. You almost perfectly with that timing. We agreed. The way you've tied in the use of SFIA with all your business objectives and having the the board level of commitment to what you've been doing as well is absolutely fantastic there. I think let's pick on a few questions. So there was a question from Andrew talking about the courses you put together for the line managers, the 2-day courses, and is that something that once you start getting through the big lump of all the current managers, but then when you're doing recruitment or internal promotion, that you're going to allow that or align that with on a regular ongoing basis?
Absolutely. So we with the amount of staff we had, we needed to do 9 cohorts, and what we've done is we've agreed with GTG that we'll reserve 1 cohort in each half of the year going forward. So as people are coming through for development or as we recruit people, we'll have that class running at least twice a year, once in the first half of the year and once in the second half of the year. Absolutely essential to make sure that we continue that personal development for our staff.
And just another one, we were chatting last week, you mentioned that there were some other departments within Arnold Clark have been wowed by the work you've been doing in this space as well. So
yeah, so unbeknownst to me, our people leader, Lynn McBurney, wonderful lady, really supportive. She's been singing my praises to other departments. And a few weeks back, our general counsel came to me and were like, Davie, I want to do a professional competency framework for legal. Lynn says what you've done works. I've ran through everything we've done, and they're actually going to take our managing and leading people training course and tweak it a little bit for legal to take some of the scenarios out that were about software development. And they're looking at the SFIA skills, especially the business skills and the generic attributes, and where they liked my approach to attributes, because things like the Scottish Law Society have got competencies for law, and what they're going to do is they're going to attach those competencies to the business skills and generic attributes, and they're going to use that kind of framework to expand how that SFIA applies to other departments.
Okay, thank you. The question here from Ian, what's your plans for the frequency of skills assessments for your teams? Is it once a year? Is it more frequent?
Great question.
Fit in? Yeah.
No, great question. So all of our software engineering teams, our product teams, run 2-week sprints with 3 sprints in a cycle. And what we're asking everybody to do is, at the end of every 6-week cycle, so at the end of every 3 sprints, the cyber teams run 3-week sprints, so that at the end of every 2 sprints, which is still a 6-week cycle, we've asked them all to review their skills and their attributes and update their skills profile. So for me, it's not a one and done. It's a continuous assessment. Once we build this in and we've got all that training out, goals and objectives will be checked regularly, and people will be asked to update the skills profile kind of every 6 weeks. If it was me and I was doing it all the time and I was doing something new, I'd recommend you go and review your profile and you update it after the end of a sprint. But every 6 weeks is kind of what we're going to communicate out there to try and keep the burden low on everybody from an overhead perspective. And we are, just as part of that as well, one of the other things we're doing is we're trying to lock in real roles from the type roles. So we're going around the teams just now, we're figuring out what the real roles are. And that's kind of where the TBC bit comes for me, because that's what we've just really started. We've got a couple of the squads locked into real roles, but the whole 300 across digital, we're not quite there yet. So TBC.
Thanks, David. Right, let's have a look here. So, question from Grant. Have you mentioned about positioning this as part of being a employer of choice and getting good feedback from individuals and people currently and who may have left as well. Have you had any feedback on that at the moment? What is it, early days? What's the position?
Feedback's been really good. Engagement's been really good. I genuinely think we'd have lost more people already in the last, what have I been here, a year and a half? We would have lost people. We've had people come up to us and say, we've been desperate for this. It's really good. Loads of engagement. All the line managers really keen. All the staff. I mean, we had, when we soft launched it, we had something like 75% of the staff do a skills self-assessment in the first 4 weeks. So, I mean, that kind of, being able to say, here's what we think the type roles are. Please assess your skills against it and tell us what levels you've got. And the other thing we've kind of done, which I never really covered, was as part of the self-assessment, we asked people to give us that unknown skills as well, because what we wanted was to gather all the information that wasn't really about the person's role. It was about the unique things for a person. So just because a software engineer, we're saying in that role, they have to have these 6 or 8 skills and they have to have them at these levels. Each individual will also have 2, 3, 4, 5 other skills and experiences. And that's where the attributes come in as well as the skills, where we've said, actually, we want to see your unknown skills, the stuff that we just don't know we've got. And we've found that really useful, especially over the last kind of 6 months or so, where all AI engineering's really taken off, where people have done AI projects out of work, or they've done little AI bits and pieces where we just didn't know they were doing it. And now that they're telling us in their skills profiles, we can actually search the skills profiles. And when we're starting a new initiative, we're finding people that have got experience we just didn't know. So it's not just getting those self-assessments of the roles, it's also that unknown skills discovery is really, really important. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, David. Question from Barbara. So you've taken us through the journey. Is there anything when you look back through where you started and where you've come from that you would do differently?
No, it's been a blast. I've enjoyed every bit of it, and I think the team have as well. We've definitely hit speed bumps, you know, things like rolling out the self-assessments and everybody staring at each other after it, going, right, we've had great success of this, but what do we do now? I think for me, being able to do it quite organically and be left to just let it grow, and having the trust from the board and the people team to just leave digital to it, but kind of come and talk to us now and again. I think for me, as I say, would I do it different the next time? I don't know if I would. You know, I'd be prepared with training for staff, because that was a real shock. As I say, I was newish to Arnold Clark. You know, I've been here a year and a half now, but to find out that all our line managers, we didn't have consistent management training, that was a bit of a shock, right? Having come from big, mature organisations elsewhere. But would I change it? No. And is the training we've done better than anything that was off the shelf? I think it is, yeah. It meets our needs, so it's exactly what we needed.
Yes. I think that we've got a question from Lisa, which I think we can follow up with Lisa. So Lisa's from the Australian Public Service, just talking about whether the training you've done for people could be open sourced. So that reflects the conversation that we had a few months ago. So, but let's leave that. We'll include Lisa, introduce to Lisa as well. I think she'll appreciate that. Right, well, we've got a question here. Is there anything, so resource planning, now that you're getting a picture of where people's skill levels in terms of SFIA and your attributes, are you in a position where you can start using the data you're getting for demand management, resource planning as you've got projects and things coming through?
Absolutely, yeah. A massive benefit is to help us with that kind of, if you like, whilst we've got development squads, we've got 18 squads across the team, and those squads are made up of, product managers, designers, senior engineers, software engineers, testers, front-end developers, and they have kind of cyber, if you like, cyber as a service, helping them out and guide them. And then we've got the infrastructure and the platform teams off the side as well. Whilst we've got all of that, it definitely helps us when we have new business demand come in, when we say, actually, we need to reshape the squads. And actually, we just done that. Yeah, second half last year, we've reshaped the squads. We reshaped them in January, and we'll probably reshape them in 3 or 4 months. So depending on that business demand, we kind of move the squads around and give them different main objectives to do for the roadmap. The leadership team, work with the kind of backlog and the strategy level. We give them high level roadmap, and then the squads go and do the implementation and design on their delivery within the sprints.
Okay, thanks for that. A question about the your TEDS approach and the technology and the experience and domains. So one of the starting points I think we see often in software engineering teams or other technical teams, that they start with the view that my skills are Python and .NET and etc., as you described. How have they taken on board the fact that actually we're going to use a different language to describe those than you may have been using 12 months ago?
We've definitely had speed bumps, and we even tried, one of the things we tried to do was to do almost a pure SFIA 9 job description, job advert, and we actually struggled to get people applying for it, because we talked about software engineering, and the attributes were MAUI and .NET, and actually the market doesn't really understand that. So whilst we get it internally, we've stayed away from changing people's job titles to be that. So people's job titles are still what they find familiar. So like mobile engineer, mobile software engineer, or job adverts still go out with the job titles of, .NET, MAUI, mobile technology software engineer. So whilst it works internally for skills assessments and leveling and understanding the capability we've got, we've really struggled with it for job adverts. So sticking to traditional job titles really helps with the job adverts. As I say, we probably went a step too far in our SFIAization of our job roles and job descriptions.
Yes, I think we see some other tools, David, the Lightcast being the most well-known one, where they trawl job adverts around the world, and their way of describing skills is very much in the Python, Excel, PowerPoint type things, and SFIA just, I think, complements it rather than being a replacement for them. I think that's a good way of approaching it. Right, Davie, we're getting some really, really good feedback in the chat in terms of your enthusiasm and the way you've told the story and the passion that you've demonstrated. I think that's what we really found really, really inspiring from what you've been talking about.